Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Abitibi-Temiscamingue. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This is a very important issue for me because I'm from a rural region, a region where I grew up, and it seems to me that not everyone fully understands our reality. There are policies put in place that are one-size-fits-all in nature and don't take into account our reality. When we look at police intervention in the evening, for example, in Abitibi West, there are some 2 teams on patrol. So that means 4 police officers covering all of Abitibi West, which is larger than some countries, in fact. So that adds a specific challenge. If there's a car accident involving more than 2 vehicles that prevents traffic from flowing, that means our entire police force is mobilized to deal with the traffic accident and then isn't helping people for other incidents. And it can get very difficult when it comes to traffic accidents or other crimes. Now, on occasion, a crime is committed, someone's injured, and we can't even get an ambulance because there are a limited number of ambulances available during the evening hours. So this is all part of the rural reality. When we talk about Indigenous policing, they have even fewer staff members. If someone falls ill, the numbers go down. Others have to do overtime. There are social issues they have to deal with. And when we talk about crime in rural areas, we can't lose sight of the fact that there are a lot of underlying social issues that need to be part of the comprehensive solution, the social aspect. So the issue is highly complex. And when we think about the Indigenous police forces, I must point out Thierry Leroux, the police officer who died. He was working in Lac-Simon, and he died as he was helping someone in distress. I spoke to his father shortly after the incident. He was a very strong man, and what he said was important, even if it's impossible to bring his son back, was that it was important to take steps that that type of situation didn't recur. So I think the motion like the one here will enable us to focus on meaningful measures that will improve tactical and operational capacities or capabilities. We need to equip these police forces with the tools they need to respond. So this will require investments, but also a strategy, a thought process. And we need to be open-minded in looking at what these police forces need and what that means in terms of funding. We appreciate additional investments that have been made, but I think that it's also important to examine the potential shortfalls and the requirements that we need to put in place. I've had an opportunity to speak to the chief of police for Picogan in my riding, and he's known me since I was small. His daughters babysat me when I was a child, and it's difficult for him to intervene in situations that are very specific in nature. And it's because the reality is often difficult to explain in the context. So I think we need to talk about the operational capabilities for these police forces. In rural communities, we also need to look at the issue of rehabilitation. In a large region, someone can leave prison and choose not to see people who may have led them down the wrong path in the first place. But when you're from a small village with 300 people, how do you accomplish that? It's almost impossible not to run into people or to see them. So it's difficult then for people not to end up back in the same circle, the same cycle, if you will. So rehabilitation measures that are put in place in prison are efficient, effective, but they need to help people who are from rural areas who end up in prison and then are released. So we need to focus on the reintegration so that these people don't end up precisely back in the same circles that led them into the life of crime in the first place. Crime rates in rural areas requires us to take a look at victims as well. Oftentimes, a victim may run into the perpetrator easily at the grocery store in a small community. It's difficult for a victim to run into someone, to have the misfortune of crossing paths with someone on a regular basis. It can cause chronic post-traumatic stress as well because they relive the difficult experiences that they went through. And that can lead victims and even in some cases women to not complaining, disclosing the issue, because the person may still be in their immediate environment, so in many cases like this, it's easier simply not to say anything. So it can be very difficult for victims who can't put an end to a situation they faced because they're constantly reminded of it. When we talk about violent crime, it's very difficult for victims, but even petty crime. What happens if you run into someone on a daily basis, someone you know who robbed you, broke into your home and stole something, but when it hasn't been proven and you know that they've committed the theft and nothing happened because the police couldn't get there in time and it was too late. So that too is part of this complex issue, this complex situation in rural areas. So that's why, Mr. Speaker, I would like to move an amendment to M167, seconded by the member for Victoria.
After the word emerging crime rates, the following. 5. Measure to increase the tactical and operational effectiveness of indigenous police force. 6. Strategies and resources dedicated to the judicial and rehabilitation system in rural areas. 7. Improve support for victims of rural crime, and that the committee report its finding to the House within 6 months of the adoption of this motion.
I need to inform honourable members that pursuant to Standing Order 93.3 of the Standing Orders, a motion to amend a motion or a motion at second reading of a private member's bill may only be moved with the authorization of the motion's sponsor.
The honourable member for Lakeland, if she consents to the amendment being moved.
I'd like to thank my colleague for her support, and I accept the amendment.
Ms. Moore, seconded by Mr. Rankin. moves that the motion be amended by adding after the words emerging crime rates the following. 5, measures to increase the tactical and operational effectiveness of Indigenous police forces. 6, strategies and resources dedicated to the judicial and rehabilitation systems in rural areas. And 7, improved support for victims of rural crime, and that the committee report its findings to the House within 6 months of the adoption of this motion. Resuming debate, the